Welcome to Business Mastery with Dawn Kennedy, your quick under 45-minute dose of expert insights and strategies to make a positive impact on your business and life. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Business Mastery Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about when we're being irresponsibly digital, which is a tremendous topic to talk about. I've got Abe here. We're going to be diving into some things and hopefully making you think before you increase your marketing budget. So, Abe, thank you so much for joining me today.
I'm excited to be here, Don. Thanks for having me.
All right, can you tell everyone who you are and who you serve?
Sure. I'm CEO of Verisoni. We're an integrated marketing company. That's just some fancy words for a marketing company. Um, so our clients, we serve, Fortune 500, the middle market and venture-backed companies, and they could be, as small as 5 million in revenue and as large as 15 billion.
Okay, amazing. So when we started designing this episode, and I know you work with enterprise-sized companies, there's a lot that you've learned working with enterprise that seriously affects the small business marketing, and calling it irresponsible digital. Can you give a little background about what you've seen and how it affects and why it's irresponsible?
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons why I started the firm, uh, 21 years ago was a lot of my doctor friends, and doctors are small businesses,
Yeah.
and lawyer friends were coming to me and saying, "Hey, look, what's going on here? Something doesn't feel right." And we started the business at the intersection of sort of the legacy media and what was going on with digital, right? And
I'm sorry, so this would have been about
2005.
2005. Okay, so
Yeah,
just
and
for the
a
audience, because
year,
some of
a
us don't
year.
believe that was 20 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And that was a year before, Facebook and YouTube were born. I think
Mm,
they were both born in 2006. And I thought within that time frame, you could literally feel the shift from the sort of offline legacy stuff to what's going on now. Now, I don't think I called it, but I don't think I understood the magnitude and how quickly all of this was going to change. But certainly, watching it in real time and understanding that, wow, there is a major shift. How could we better position our clients, regardless of the size? I thought there was an opportunity, and we've been doing that ever since. Now, in terms of, spend, I'll back it up. Marketing is about changing somebody's mind, right? Getting somebody to do something. It's a behavioral science.
right.
And what digital has forced us to do is think about it in terms of clicks and think about it in terms of ROAS and all of this stuff. And I think that small businesses have got to figure out, yeah, I mean, there is a return on investment for all of this stuff, but there's also a return on brand. There's also a return on reputation. Many small businesses, uh, 70% of their customers really don't come from any kind of advertising. They come from word of mouth,
Interesting.
right? So if that's the case, then the question then becomes, what is if that is indeed true, right, and those are sort of the numbers that are being thrown around, then what's the appropriate allocation for that 30% that I'm going to go after?
Right. Let me ask you this because I want to be really clear about what we're talking about when you say legacy media. So the traditional forms of advertising, the yellow
Yeah,
pages, the
yeah,
newspaper, the radio, even, we would just kind of have a budget
yeah,
and send it out, never understanding. I mean, we knew there was a reach. We had a good idea of the subscribers, but we weren't actually necessarily, unless we asked the people coming in where they found us, able to tell if we were getting a decent return on what we were spending on the yellow pages.
Yeah.
But that's not true in digital. So you're saying in digital, we've been sort of forced to look at the investment side and that return on ad spend or that return on marketing investment. And when did it kind of switch? Because some people think it's an expense that it just, it's like your phone bill, right?
Yes.
You just,
Yes.
it's an expense, it's an overhead. And some people are like, no, it's an investment. When you put ad dollars there, you need to get a return on that. Otherwise, you're sort of lighting your money on fire. So I'm interested in your thoughts on that.
Right. So, so for sophisticated uh, advertisers back in the day, right, there might have been a special phone number
Oh,
for ads. Okay.
okay.
And so they're able to track that. For most, for people like Coca-Cola and some of the, mattress companies that, we all know, they probably had those systems in place, but they relied on brand advertising, right? So, and what happens is that if there are four outlets, four newspapers, four TV stations locally, right? There's only a certain amount of places where you can place your message. But now um, it's become democratized. And I can go in and I can go into Google Analytics and say, oh, you know, this is how many people visited my website. This is how many people clicked on my ad on Meta or Facebook or Twitter or whatever. This is how many form fills I got. Okay. Um, and where businesses of all sizes, I think, are challenged is that they tend to ask those questions sort of after or before or during or maybe ignore the creative, right? Because you hired agencies to come up with creative and that creative was, good, bad, or ugly, right? Remember the Wendy's commercials with "Where's the beef?" Right? Here in New Jersey and New York, we had Crazy Eddie, where, the guy was just, throwing stuff and
The
yelling at you
electronics guy.
exactly on TV.
I remember him actually. I'm from New York.
Right. And then the Super Bowl commercials were memorable and but now everybody can point, click, add, publish, and then I want to see what's going on. Here's the problem. The problem is you didn't know what was going on back then when it was legacy media, and you need to know what's going on now because we have bots. We have fake traffic. We have ad fraud, legitimate ad fraud that happens. And we also have a statistical phenomenon on Facebook, for example. If you're a business and you're bringing 1,000 people, and that's very hard to do to your business page. Well, um, Facebook, the stats that we get from Rival IQ will tell you that the engagement rate on anything organic, meaning that you're not paying for it, you're posting, is somewhere around 0.025%. And I'm horrible at math, but if we were to take 1,000 people and do 0.025, you're looking at less than a half a person looking at your stuff.
Right.
So what are we doing? Right? We're basically slaves, we're serfs to these platforms because we're also subjected, we're human beings, right? We're on Facebook and we're like, oh, look, blah, blah, blah. Well, that has nothing to do with the way that your consumers are behaving on the way that you think about it. It is, I mean, maybe, but the way that people generally think about their behavior on Facebook is not the way that Facebook is actually producing for businesses,
Okay.
right?
And is this just an algorithm change? Is this just decisions made over the last 20 years that you've been doing the digital? Or is this something that's maybe more relatively new as more platforms have come up? Because I mean, now there's not just Twitter or now X, there's Blue Sky and Substack that have a feature that you can restack
Mhm,
things or whatever they call them in the platform.
mhm.
And then not only Instagram, but there are other platforms over time. I am the one that comes to mind is Snapchat, I think that did pictures, right?
Yeah.
Do you think this is just the evolution of the digital space, or is this companies realizing that we'll just pony up the money? Because the ad fraud thing, I definitely want to make sure we talk about. But I
Well,
definitely want to talk about the,
I want to address something that you just
yeah.
said, which I think is very important. It's both ponying up the money and the time,
Mm,
right? Um, Early on, 2007, I was at an entrepreneurship conference and I was on stage and I talk about this in my book and the presenter or the moderator said, "Well, Abe is here to talk to us about how to promote our businesses for free on Facebook." And so what I said was, well, I mean, technically it's free, but what about my time? You know, what about the business owner's time? What about the marketing department's time? Okay. And then, what's the, return on that? And that's on the organic side. Now, going back to the first part of your question about, well, like sort of the evolution of this. Well, Facebook is a business and they figured out that, oh my gosh, if I'm giving people space, well, in order to promote their particular thing, we'll have them pay to boost, right? And so at $10 a boost, if you do $10 a day, right, or $10 a boost, you could do the math. And then what are you getting out of it?
yeah.
So, and behaviorally, if you're Dunkin' Donuts, well, and if you're giving away free donuts or coffee or if you're the New York Jets or the New York Knicks, behaviorally, your social is going to be a lot different than if you're a mom and pop shop or if you're a lawyer or if you're a doctor on social media. And we have to understand that. But what we tend to do as humans, we tend to look at that and say, why can't we do this?
Mm,
Right. And
right.
it's a natural human response to want to participate in all of this, but we really need to be careful, especially if you are putting dollars against and time against all of this stuff.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that time being put against it. So some of the things that I've become aware of over the last 7-8 years of being online. I wasn't online much before that. It's only since about 2018 or so that I decided that maybe I needed to be online, other than playing with my kids right on Facebook and posting prom photos. So there used to be apps and things where you could schedule posts ahead, almost like you would um again, submit your newspaper ad or submit your thing, and it was timed, I
Mhm.
guess, to go out, and it was kind of a sunk cost in getting it done, but you could batch it, put it all out, send it all out. And then apparently they started with the algorithm sort of affecting the reach of people who actually planned ahead. Can we talk a little bit about that change?
Well, to be honest, Don, I'm not sure if anything changed there. Those still exist. We use them as tools for our clients, and it's not the algorithm isn't necessarily impacted by those, or they don't impact the algorithm.
Okay.
What platforms do is they'll say, okay, how do we keep, their thing is we're in the attention economy, and how do I keep people here? And I don't want them to go for, if I'm on Facebook, Facebook wants you to stay there because they're selling your data and your behavior for an ungodly amount of money. I mean,
Right.
uh, so uh, so those do exist. Uh, Things like Hootsuite,
Hmm.
Social Bee, are really great tools for businesses of all sizes, and they don't impact the algorithm. And internally, teams or business owners can look at and test, say, okay, I'm gonna, for these posts, we're gonna do these types of posts, video posts, um, 1 o'clock on Tuesday. Well, you could run a test and do that for, 3 months, right? And say, and then, next week we'll run them at 4 o'clock on a Thursday and compare, right? But those tools are effective, and they are a time saver for businesses.
Right. Yeah, I know that inside, I think it was the Meta platform, not that long ago, we got a business management request that, it's like you need to schedule your posts using Meta.
Right.
And that's, where you should be scheduling your posts. So I was very curious about that. Because the the truth is that we've been hearing that things like Hootsuite and stuff does affect if it's coming from there rather than you posting it on like Meta's business scheduler.
We're gonna have to check that out because that's the first time I've heard that. I mean, I'm glad we're talking about it. Thank you for that.
Yeah, this is, and again, it's fairly recent.
Yeah.
And we've been doing, just in our coffee business anyway, more of the organic, like you set a timer and you post it there. But we don't do a lot of digital, so I don't know. It's just anecdotal for us. But these types of things, like you're saying, the owner's time and the creative and all the things, there is that cost that goes to this organically. So let's now talk about the advertising side of this. And to your point, things like ad fraud. And you're not just talking about like the scammers who post things that are AI generated and you click it and it's a Temu thing. Because I've seen some business case studies on that recently, that it's super easy to set up an ad with a nefarious purpose, and they're not screening those very well when they're done by AI. That's obviously a problem they have to deal with. But, what things should we be cognizant of before we start giving our credit card number and our marketing budget to these platforms?
Well, true reach, and true engagement, it's a problem. Um, Facebook says they purge 1 billion accounts a quarter.
Oh, wow.
Right. I mean, those are published numbers. You can find them on Statista, and similar, research, based companies. Um, so, my question to Facebook then would be like, all right, so if you're purging 1 billion that we know of, right, or
Right.
you say,
Right.
right, and if we are saying, I have so many followers, like how do I account for my followers on my business? Right? Like, how
Right.
do I know they're not from, if you're a local business in Kansas City or a local business in Pittsburgh, right? You want your followers to be local
Right.
and you want your ad to be served there. Um, and how do I know if these are fake accounts that could be set up in Pittsburgh or in Kansas City? How do I know that I'm not paying for those? And what was astonishing, and I actually stopped my book to put this in the book, last June, Mark Zuckerberg came out and said, and this is during and after or whatever, where we already know they purge 1 billion accounts a quarter. He came out and said, we did a study where people have 3 friends, and well, the market really calls for 15 friends. So we're going to create, digital friends for people. And all these sort of influencers online were, clapping and cheering, which is, I'm just going to come out and say it, it's insane. Because if that's the case, then what we're doing is we're creating more fake people to engage with my business.
So let me make sure I understand this. So the average Facebook account, personal Facebook account that people are using to share pictures has like three friends. That's the
No,
average. Oh,
no, no,
okay.
the like offline.
Oh, offline. Offline.
Offline, right? That was his thing. You can Google, you can check my mouth, everything
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah,
saying,
yeah.
you can check my mouth, right? Um, Offline, people have 3 friends, but you're in the market for 15, and we're going to
Okay.
create them on Facebook for you. Well, if that's the case, you're literally creating more fake people,
Yeah.
right? Fake avatars. So we have to, we, and there's no accountability, by the way. You ever try calling somebody at Facebook? Okay.
Yeah.
There
So,
you go. Yeah.
yeah. So the number of people that have had their accounts disabled and they don't have a really good resolution track to get that resolved. And, yeah, yeah, I'm a bit familiar. I mean, they do
Yeah.
own the platform, but I guess my question then is, you know, do they have some sort of, I guess I'm going to call it a defense. It's not really a defense, but do they have something where it's like, well, when you were paying for, the newspaper, you didn't know how many people were going to get that copy that day. Why would you pay us differently? So I'm
Well,
I'm curious
well,
as to, because I know that they actually do give a range of the number of people that should see
yeah,
the ad. They're the ones that guarantee circulation at some point. So I'm curious
yeah.
about your thoughts on that kind of statement. That I'm not sure saying they made it, but just the perspective of, hey,
So, so I don't really trust anything. But here's the deal. Newspapers uh, and magazines were uh, at a certain girth
yeah,
were audited, and I'm not sure who audits Facebook aside from the business owner and the marketing department. Okay, and I say this with all due respect. Um, uh, because of the I can never say that word, democratization of marketing,
yeah.
everybody's a marketer now. But I'm a guard. I play basketball and I coach basketball, and so is Michael Jordan. Okay. I'd rather have Michael Jordan playing for me. So my point is that most businesses do not have the time, the proclivity, or the inclination to dig into all of this stuff and say, okay. And because what they really want is they want the shiny thing that says I could track stuff and I could take it to my boss and say, see, we track it. This is what's going on, right? And as long as you could track it, then that becomes a shield. It becomes something that you can hide behind. But there's vanity data like likes, you know, it what we've audited businesses where they've had a bunch of likes, but the businesses in Houston and in Los Angeles, and most of their likes are from Pakistan. What are we talking about here?
How do we audit that though? I mean,
Well, you have to look at it.
you have to, yeah, you have to go
You have
in
to
and,
look at it, and then there's software that's helpful, and you have to get that involved. Um, and but you have to ask these critical questions, and that's just on that side. But I also want you to notice, what's going on right now, like in this conversation?
hmm,
We're talking about marketing. We want to talk about marketing, and again, the name of the book is digitally irresponsibly
I
digital,
know, I can't wait to
and
read
and the
it.
and so digital just sucks so much because it's the elephant in the room that we tend to neglect everything else,
Yeah.
right? I'll give you a story. We have a middle market company in Michigan. They're terrific. They came to us 5 years ago because they wanted to build their business on LinkedIn, and we looked at it and we said, uh, "That's great. It's not for us." Why? Well, you're not going to build your business on LinkedIn. It's going to just It's right. We're not going to do that. Well, what do you suggest? We took a look. We're going to build your business on webinars. Webinars, it takes a lot of time. Yes. Well, um, at the time they had 3,000 emails. And email, believe it or not, is the gold standard in digital. It is not social media because you're going to get a much higher return. The numbers are in my book. I don't, you're going to get a much higher return on email. So we started doing webinars. We went from capturing 3,000 customer emails to today, 5 years later, 148,000. The
Wow.
company's revenue went like this, whichever way, this way.
Yeah, it went up.
Right? Yeah, it went up exponentially once we started capturing that because they had what we recognized. They had a really good product, an excellent excellent CEO who comes across very well. And then we partnered with much larger organizations who brought these folks to the table. And then so by it's basically trading expertise for email, and it works for everybody,
Very
right?
cool. Yeah.
And that's just one example of how the online offline game could be played. We mix that with continuing to go to trade shows. And the reason why you want to go to trade shows for that particular company is so you can acquire more email lists that
Right.
are more credible. Because if we were to go out and buy email lists, the attrition rate is terrible. So if I'm spending $10,000 on an email list or $10,000 all in on on a trade show, I'm going to the trade show. I know it's going to require a lot more time, but that's more reliable. I
Yeah.
get to meet people. And marketing is about marketing to humans, dealing with humans, because I know AI is all the rage, but it's not buying my stuff right now,
Right.
you know. And I do want that to come across to folks that they shouldn't forget the humanity of the business because of all this. And that's why it's important. The creative part that we were talking about, creative part is very important.
Very much so.
Yeah.
So, as a small business, let's say that you've been doing things kind of the same way. It's been working for you. The Google Ads thing, I guess, has been a thing recently because now they're doing I don't know what to call it. It's like AI recommendations.
Mhm,
So,
mhm.
the cost per click thing, I think, is sort of waning or changing the way they do it because as of right now, as far as I know, you cannot pay to be recommended by AI. I think it all has to do with AETV or
Well,
A.
you can
Can
so if you're on Chat GPT, you can buy ads on Chat GPT. You can also
oh
feed your local blog a certain way to quote unquote teach. I don't know who came up with this, but it's brilliant and nefarious at the same time. They're
yeah, I
calling
was
it
gonna say that sounds a
a,
little
yeah, AI nutrition, they're calling it, right?
AI nutrition.
They're calling it AI. Yeah, to go along with AI hallucinations, but that's a completely different rabbit hole that I'm going to go down, and I've been going down that rabbit hole, and it's tough. It really is tough these days because there's so much stuff coming at you, from our perspective that you really want to make sense for your clients. And my gosh, the volume of BS is unbelievable.
I saw a study, and I'm going to have to go back and dig into it a little bit more, that as human beings, we're only designed for a certain number of connections.
Yes,
We're not designed as human beings to have like 60,000 people,
yes,
in our quote unquote circle. Um,
yes.
so I'm curious a little bit about, are we getting some, and again, these are early articles. I think I've only
Yes,
read them
no,
and I've done
but
a few case study reviews because I'm, that guy. But, what are your thoughts on how we're sort of swinging the other way and, maybe leaning more into organic is perhaps, at least for the time being, maybe a little bit of a better move for.
I was at an awards dinner recently, and there was this uh, former CEO of a very large company, and he started talking to me, and out of nowhere, he points at me and he's like, "Well, I see you don't have that many LinkedIn followers. I have this however many LinkedIn followers, right?" And he might have had like 28,000 LinkedIn followers or whatever, right?
Okay.
And his assistant or whatever was right there. And I said, "Well, yeah, I mean, that's great. How many conversations have you had with your 38,000 followers?
Right.
Like real conversations. Okay. And then how many of those actually are not fanboys and girls, right? Like just fanning, right? And what is the substance of that relationship? because on my LinkedIn, I might have 2,800 or whatever. Um, Admittedly, and it's true, I probably have 75 substantial relationships there. Now, I might know some of these people, but of the 2,800, there's no way I could know any of 2,800 people. My brain, I'm not that smart. It doesn't, right? Now, if that number goes up, is it going to make me feel better about myself? Right? Is it going to, I mean, that's the entire thing. Like, your neurons fire when there's a like, your neurons fire when people follow you. Um, and that's the addiction that I also talk about in the book a little bit. You
Yeah,
know, one of the Nordic countries, as recently as 3 weeks ago, came out and said, we're not doing computers in schools anymore. It's not
right.
going to happen because they're seeing grades drop, performance drop, just like here in the US.
And
Okay.
attention spans too, right?
A
Yeah,
100%. So I think our relationship with all of this needs to be re-examined, but we are all, including myself, um, addicted to this. And for kids, this is a weapon of mass destruction.
it is.
You know, and it is for businesses which is which is what we're talking about right now. It really is for businesses. They need to know where that spend goes, and there's a black box on Facebook. There is a black box on PPC with Google, because I for a large extent, I may or may not know, and it may or may not tell me who these people are coming on, who these people are, if that's what we want to measure and where they're coming from. Um, no, actually, it will tell you where they're coming from. It'll, you could you could see the map. So if your ad is being clicked on at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're in New York on the East Coast, and it's being clicked on at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you open at, you know, 8 a.m. or whenever the search, you've got to reconcile those
Right.
behaviors and understand what the traffic pattern is and what the meanings are for each business.
Now, why do you think that I know there's a lot of competition in the online space during certain times of the year. So we also know certain industries are cyclical based on seasons or whatever. But from your experience doing this over the years, do you think ad spend has gone up proportionately to like the actual conversion, or do you think that there's any responsibility on their side when it goes from 60 cents a click to $60 a click? Do they have any sort of responsibility to sort of what happened to that money, right? I mean, we sort of demand transparency if our electric bill doubles, or we want to know what happens if all of a sudden we're receiving bank fees we didn't have before, or let's say some other, thing that we've invested in has doubled, tripled, quadrupled in price. We might even go and look for a different provider. What are your thoughts around that? Because this black box thing just made me have a little knot in my stomach. I think if they're taking our money, we should have some transparency as to why the pricing is the way that it is.
No, agreed. And look, in certain instances, Google is pretty good about, if there's a phishing incident related to your ad, they'll give you your money back. Okay,
Okay.
but and I really do believe they're good at that, because we've seen that with our own clients, in our own experience over the years. That's great. But in terms of the pricing of the ad based on time or whatever, it is a dog eat dog world. And again, uh, you're not really going to talk to anybody at Google. And in fact, I copied and pasted the monthly email that our firm gets from Google for our clients. And it's literally the same email. If we have however many clients, they send these emails out. And the email goes like this, something like this, right? Hi, we noticed that your traffic is down. We'd like to talk to you about if you adjust your spending. This happens once a month. So adjusting your spending isn't this way. Adjusting your spending is this way.
Every
Okay.
time.
It literally every single time these emails come, right? And the other thing that Google does, and I discussed that as well, is that they'll call them business consultants, but uh, these business consultants do a 3 month rotation. So they have no time to really understand your business, right? Like what could happen in 3 months? I mean, I don't even know. Like
Yeah.
in my own business, things can change in 6 weeks,
Yeah.
right? So they have these people rotating, and they call them business consultants, and the conversations, and we do get on with them every once in a while, but the conversations inevitably are about increasing our budgets. And
Mm,
if people continue to pay, then what you're doing is you're feeding the beast. And I don't have a, I don't have, and I say this in the book, I don't have all the answers. What I'm trying to do is get us to think about better questions.
right.
You know, if we can get to better questions, and I think I've gotten to a point where I could ask better questions, but then what could I, as a small business, do about my spend with Google? I mean, do I continue to be there? Well, yes, you have to, because if your competition is there,
Right.
what, right? And and that becomes a regulatory question, because there's really one, I mean, Google is 89% of search,
Yeah.
right? And now everybody's talking about the move to AI, and there's all kinds of study that suggest that AI search is somewhere around, excuse me, as low as, 1.2% to as high, it could be as high as 12% of search. I'm going to wait because we have to. We still don't know enough about that,
Yeah.
but people are asking us about AI advertising. It's a real thing now.
See, and my quote unquote issue with this, honestly, is if I were to open an AI search and ask a question like, who is the top 10 plumbers in this zip code or something like that. I'm looking for a recommendation, right? Before, when you went into Google and you said, can you give me the 10 plumbers in this area, you'd have your ads up front. You knew they were ads. Okay, that's
Mhm.
cool. But then the search underneath would just be the search underneath, and it could be by distance of the zip code or whatever. Now, without prompting AI to make a recommendation, without saying to AI, tell me who to choose, Google opens up and gives you an AI answer almost without your consent is kind of the issue. But AI advertising, if
But
you
based on what? Well, like where does AI get its information?
right, that's it. So now we have the AAET and everybody has to go and put FAQs on their websites. But now everybody's doing the same thing to try to be recommended by AI. And now we're going
Right.
to start paying AI to promote us.
Yes.
It just feels like a really slippery slope, especially with, to your point, the fraud that's already going on the platforms that are organically, creatively designed by people and pushed out by people, and A/B testing and all the things that marketers do. I'm not a marketer, but isn't that a little concerning, or at least to me, it's a little concerning.
Well, AI is being fed right now by, I mean, if you think about what AI does, and it's gonna, at least right now, and I know it's gonna get better, and I don't know what that means, but we're gonna monitor that change and
Yeah,
see if it's meaningful or not and how to use it. But um, uh, AI right now is gonna revert to the mean, meaning that it goes out, it has all of this publicly available information, which it is borrowing, right? Because they're not paying for it. It's just kind of also amazing.
yeah,
And depending on how you prompt it or you ask it these questions, it's coming back to you. Now, businesses and university, they're already figuring out how to manipulate this to their benefit. Okay, so then the answer is it is manipulatable right now. We could do that, which is, AI nutrition, all these FAQs, and I do more FAQs than you if we're in the same business, and I'm a better bit, I'm the recommendation. I don't know how that works, but it is manipulated. And if that is the case, and AI moves volume, meaning moves my attention from Google, right, to let's say Anthropic, then that's a market that Anthropic will sell into and capture dollars because it's an advertising thing.
Right.
Right. The other thing, one more thing that I think is worthy to talk about is, and I think it's a good thing, and there's fraud there too. But there are people that are much smarter than me, like Dr. Augustine Fu, who people, if you're interested, follow him on LinkedIn. But Vibe, the rise of Vibe on TV is terrific because now if I want to advertise on television, I could advertise on the apps and I could do it by zip code. Whereas in the past, you either had to buy the on-air package or these sort of clunky geographic, locations that are broken up strategically so you could buy two or three from the cable company
Yeah, instead of buying one, right?
instead of buying one. So YouTube, Vibe, those kinds, and people are watching TV. They're just watching TV differently.
Right.
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 The NBA finals were last night. Yeah, I went out, there were a bunch of people watching TV, right? So there are some things that we can also look at that where they say, oh, people are cutting the cord. Well, people are cutting the cord, but that doesn't mean it's the death of television.
Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah, we're just doing things differently. So again, instead of using the yellow pages, we're
Right.
sort of using the Google machine, and it may revert a little bit. I actually saw a little teeny yellow pages actually not that long ago in a local county. It was tiny. It was maybe 50 pages, but it was there. So
Direct
maybe,
mail works. Why
yeah,
do
maybe that's
politicians use?
gonna come
I
back.
mean, yeah, right? I mean, Home Depot. You get mailers from Home Depot.
Oh
Why?
yeah,
Why do they do that?
it works.
Right? Bed Bath and Beyond. Everybody gets that really ugly. I mean, it's probably the most famous campaign in the history of direct mail. And I'm the guy that goes to that store, and I always think it, and I'm in the business, but I always think it's 20% off the entire bill, but it's 20% off of one item because it's 20%. It shows up in my mailbox every single month. And that speaks to, strategy and the consistency portion of marketing and advertising and messaging. If we're consistent, even if it's bad creative, we will achieve results.
Yeah, so
I,
it's
yeah,
consistency.
I'm agnostic about creative. I think creative is great, but if you think about all the really quote unquote terrible used car commercials, you remember them, right? Like you remember the guy screaming at you.
Right. Yeah, what a great point.
Right.
Yeah, Crazy Eddie definitely that was my childhood in New York. I do remember Crazy Eddie and his electronics. So, that is so funny to think about because you're 100% right about those um again, traditional sort of, legacy things that went on. But yes, they were very impactful to people who absorbed them and watched them over time. So, can you tell everyone about your book, about how to reach out to you, how to find you, and where to lurk you? I'm assuming on LinkedIn.
Yes, I'm a little salty on LinkedIn. I share all of this data. Some people may like it, some people don't. But you could follow me on LinkedIn or connect with me on LinkedIn. And then hopefully we could develop a relationship there, right? But Verisoni.com is our website, and the book is called Irresponsibly Digital. And if you go to irresponsiblydigital.com, it'll take you to all your favorite platforms. So, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever you like, you could purchase it there. Please do purchase it. I get about $3 a book, and I have kids in college. We need the money. Um,
That's great.
but I wrote the book uh, because all of these ideas needed to sit in a place. I have these conversations um, one way or another, at different points of time about different things with every client. Their ad fraud is real. Digital advertising is real and it works. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm not saying we shouldn't do Facebook. I'm not saying that any of that. What I am saying is that if we're going to do all of that stuff, it has to be with a one, we have to go in with our eyes open, ask the right questions, because there is a money suck that's happening there, and
Yeah.
each business experiences it differently. This has been great for the agency business. It's also, if you, and I've always said this, digital is a tax on business. It's an additional tax, right? Why? Well, now I have to pay a social media consultant, and they may not like this, but it's true. I have to pay a social media consultant to do something, or I have to spend time on this, or if I'm a big company, I have to have a department for all of this.
Hmm.
Okay, great. And I'm glad that we've created jobs. What are we getting out of it?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think social media manager was a thing in 2000, 2001, 2002. Just kind of watched a documentary not that long ago that talked about the jobs that were created in the auto industry in the last 125 years and in the airplane industry in 120.
Right,
There were no flight attendants in the 1910s that at least I'm aware of on commercial, flights
right,
to take you from New York to LA. So of course it's going to change and evolve, and I agree with you. It is something though that I think we think will be easy. Well, we'll just post it on Facebook. It'll be fine.
right.
We're just gonna throw
Well,
money at Facebook. It'll be great. Wait until you see what we're doing this month on Instagram. The photos are beautiful.
up until, I mean, just look at what happened with the shift, a very quick shift within the last 2 years. I mean, universities were training uh, their students on social media management. I mean, that's like having a degree for telephone sales, which there isn't one. Okay. There is no specific degree in television advertising that I think I know of. Maybe at UCLA or USC, and there might
Right,
be a program at University of Florida, but there isn't. But these universities have been selling uh, certificates in social media, and which, okay, fantastic. Uh, Now we may not need all of that. Well, what's their response,
right,
right? What's their response? And then what do those kids do who graduated with those degrees? What do they do with that,
right,
right? Because teaching somebody how to post and teaching somebody the psychology and how the platform works are not the same thing.
right.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. We are, as you say, in a human business where we're
yeah.
connecting and working with humans. And I think that wrapping all this up, that the human being in the loop is the most important, where you decide to reach out to them. And where your people live and what your budget is and all the things. So we're going to put everything down inside the show notes. So the book will be there, the LinkedIn will be there. And if you find us on the day that this drops recording, or if you find it 2, 3 years later, you should still be able to find everything you need. Go read Irresponsibly Digital. I'm going to get myself a copy because I think it's important to understand what is going on in the digital marketing space at a level that is not just all of the the danger or the algorithms changing or the hype of the algorithms changing, because that's really what you hear a lot about. There's that is the big change, has always been, feels like anyway, it's the algorithm. And that's something we don't control, but you don't hear a lot of these other things we talked about today. And I really appreciate this conversation. So thank you so much for all of your time.
Oh, thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed the discussion.
I did too. Thank you. All right. We'll talk to y'all next time on the next episode of the Business Mastery Podcast. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Business Mastery Podcast. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to DawnKKennedy.com, and you can now check us out on YouTube, as well as, of course, any of your favorite platforms that host podcasts. Take care.